As you know, the Miami Hurricanes went into Lane Stadium and controlled and handled the Virginia Tech Hokies 34-17. But according to ESPN, the ones who were broadcasting this game, Miami barely survived a scare in Virginia Tech. As you can see on the screen, this was the graphic that college football had during the little college football scoreboard show where they go over the scores around the league and the results around the league. And apparently, Miami avoided a scare against Virginia Tech, and this is just insane. It's stupid at this point. I said I wasn't gonna complain about this stuff because of what happened last year, where I just kept complaining about it last year, and we know it's gonna happen and blah blah blah. But it's annoying at this point that ESPN continues to push this agenda that the ACC is terrible and Miami shouldn't be in the playoffs and Notre Dame should be over them, Alabama should be over them, everybody in the SEC should be over them, everybody should be over them because this is the stuff we're talking about right here. Miami survives this scare. What scare? What scare? If anyone who watched this game knows Miami was going to win this game 100%. 100%. They were up 2 scores for 85% of the game. According to ESPN win probability, they didn't go below 92% win probability. That means they had a 92% or higher chance to win this game, according to ESPN, throughout this whole game. And they survived a scare? Miami survived a scare? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And this is not the only thing today that pissed me off with ESPN and the Miami Hurricanes and just everything going on around the college football playoffs and the Miami Hurricanes' chances to make the college football playoffs. It was also Louis Riddick on commentary. He was the one on commentary with who knows who, Bob Wischusen, I believe. It's that little crew that they have on this Virginia Tech Miami game, and he couldn't get the word style points out of his mouth fast enough after Miami did anything. After Miami did everything and anything, Miami needs these style points. It's all about style points. This, that style points. My God, he was just nailing into our brains that style points is all that matters. Like he was just nailing it in. And in Miami, we didn't win the game by 40. We didn't win the game by 70 like Notre Dame just beat sorry ass Syracuse by. We didn't win the game like that. No, we didn't. Okay, we see that. We won the game by 17 and we controlled the game. You look at total yards, we won. Turnovers, we won. Time of possession, we won. We had 8 total possessions this game. That's not even a crazy amount of possessions to have. And you expect us to hang more than 50 points? I mean, we had 8 total possessions. We scored on 6 of them. We punted twice. This game was not, it wasn't close at all. It wasn't close. This was domination. It was not utter domination. It was not a blowout. It wasn't a smoke show. No, it wasn't. Not at all. Not at all. It wasn't the game that we just played against NC State. It wasn't the game that we played against Syracuse in the last 3 quarters of the game. No, it wasn't. But it was a domination. I never felt Virginia Tech was in this game at all. They gashed us on the run game. That's their best. Virginia Tech's a great running team. They have 2 running quarterbacks. Kyron Drones and the other guy they bought in, they both can run. They have running backs. They can run. Hawkins, 8 carries, 72 yards. Miami's defense has not been... This is the worst game Miami's defense has played against the run all season. And you know what? You know how I know Miami's defense is good against the run and just Virginia Tech's really good on the run, on the ground? Is because we held Jeremiah Love, a Heisman candidate, to 40 yards in the first game of the season. Yeah, that's how I know. We just held NC State's guys to 14 yards rushing Hollywood Smothers and the other dude. Those are 2 really good running backs right there. That's what we did. That's what the Miami Hurricanes did on defense, and we got gashed this game. But this doesn't take away from anything that we should earn this playoff spot, that we deserve a playoff spot. While ESPN, the people that buy the rights to the ACC want to consistently, because they have a bigger, better toy in the SEC, want to consistently bring down the Miami Hurricanes and the talent they play and the style they play and how they play and just everything about them, because we didn't win by 50. It's an agenda they consistently push, whether it's an excuse on why Notre Dame is better than Miami or ranked higher than Miami, even though we beat them. Primetime standalone Sunday game, August 31st, we beat them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to ESPN. It's their constant agenda push that it makes no sense. I don't understand it. Louis Riddick adding on. Now we got this scoreboard thing where they said we were getting scared. Added on. We know the committee doesn't watch the games. And the committee is probably influenced by the commentary that Louis Riddick is giving during this game. which makes it worse. This is why it's annoying. If you put this stuff out there and you put this whole idea of style points, the committee does not watch all these games. And when they do watch the games, they're probably influenced by the commentary. And we have to consistently listen to Louis Riddick go on about style points, style points, style points, style points. He clearly didn't want Miami. He doesn't want Miami to make the playoffs. He's pushing the narrative even further. And it's annoying at this point. It's stupid. It's stupid. Because ESPN this week talking about Louisville and SMU being bad losses. All the talking media heads that hate Miami or just Notre Dame meat riders want to say we have 2 bad losses. Well, guess what? SMU is probably one of the hottest teams. Is the hottest ACC team right now. They just absolutely smoked Louisville. No quarterback or not. Okay, they have a chance to be in the ACC championship. They were just in the ACC championship last year. How is that a bad loss? Louisville's a decent team. Look, that was the worst game of the season, losing to Louisville in that game. That was the worst performance. We played decent through a couple quarters against SMU, but we choked that one away because of our play calling, obviously. But Louisville was the worst one in the season. Okay, I understand that. But SMU is not a bad loss. Louisville is not that bad of a loss. They're unranked right now. Yes, of course, they're unranked. But okay, cool. But just because they're unranked doesn't mean it's a bad loss. It doesn't at all. And it pisses me off that just because we have these 2 losses and Notre Dame has 2 losses, they get credit for those 2 losses. And we heard this, you guys heard this a million times. They get more credit for losing to Miami than Miami gets for beating them. And it's true. And the narrative is continued to be pushed throughout these broadcasts and throughout ESPN's television whenever I turn it on, whenever they talk about Miami. That's all I hear. And now I had to hear Louis Riddick go on and rant about style points. Motherfucker, I don't care. I don't care about you and your style points. We know. How about you talk about how Carson Beck is having an amazing game? How he's 27-32 and he's been playing amazing these last 2 games. And how about you support Miami maybe instead of talking about the style points and say, oh, who wouldn't want to see this Miami team in the playoffs that's been playing hot football for the last 4 weeks? How about we talk about who doesn't want to see Malachi Toney in the college football playoffs? It's a shame if they don't end up in it because they got to win over Notre Dame, who's ranked number 9 ahead of them. Why don't we say that instead? Why don't we change something, change the narrative? Instead of talking about style points. Style points. We just hung 34 on the team on the road. Scored 6 of our 8 possessions. Talk about those facts. Instead of talking about style points. Here's his response. He responded on Twitter all the criticism he was getting because it's straight bullshit. I don't even know where it starts. It'll come down to last week and blah, blah, blah. No, this was the one right here. This is a show dedicated to There is a show dedicated to CFP rankings and the thinking of the selection committee every week. Some might want to watch it and become informed on how the committee is thinking about all of this from week to week before talking about it. So he's talking about all the Miami fans shitting on him. And see, this guy gets it. Agreed, you were great today in Miami. Miami dominated from start to finish on the road in a tough environment. Miami should move up against Utah this week. This is the also thing. This is another thing. So, Utah, we needed them to lose. Unfortunately, they had a miracle comeback against Kansas State, who couldn't hold a 10-point lead for 5 minutes, which is unfortunate. Whatever, things happen. It's college football. Utah is not a bad team. They're not a bad team. But I already saw, it was on Fox, so it's a different ESPN, but they're going to get the same narrative. They're going to push the same narrative on Monday. We already know how this goes. They were giving credit to Utah because they were still resilient in their win. They did a great comeback. They were able to overcome this 10-point deficit within 5 minutes. They were promoting Utah as this great team because they were able to do that. Yet, they don't accept the fact that Kansas State is a 6-win team most likely this season. Maybe it could be a 7-loss team this season, depending on how next week goes for them. So they could not even be a bowl-eligible team, and they're not accepting the fact or acknowledging the fact that they just went to the wire and almost lost and were one linebacker in the B gap away from losing to a non-bowl-eligible team. But that's not going to be spun in the media. That's not going to be talked about in the media because Utah overcame this 10-point deficit within 5 minutes, and that's why they're such a good team. And Davion and Dampier is so good, and Fanu and his other brother are running wild, and they have a great O-line, and this, then, run game, and the offense, and all of this is so great and so wonderful. They're not going to talk about the fact that they almost lost to a non-bowl eligible team. Yet Miami is getting saved. Miami survives a scare when they won by 17 points. Well, Miami needs to put up style points. Well, guess what? When the rankings come out, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami drops and Utah ascends. I wouldn't be surprised because of the narrative that was pushed on commentary on Fox, which whether it was a call from being like actually a reasonable commentator that was like, okay, we need to promote this Big 12 team to get in for an at-large bid. Why don't we promote these teams on commentary? So we can get as much Big 10 teams or Big 12 teams to get it at large bid as possible because that's what Fox wants. But ESPN, on the other hand, you know what they want. They want those SEC teams to get in. Miami's a threat to those SEC teams. And you know what's crazy? I'm just going on a whole rant. This is Jay. My nose is running. I don't feel good. I'm going on a whole rant. But Alabama, like, you think it's getting pushed right now that Alabama should be considered like to fall out of the top 10 or the top whatever the top 10 because of their loss to FSU? No, because everybody forgot about that. They got a win over Georgia. Great win over Georgia. That was it. That's all they had. Like, come on. There's no talk about Miami possibly having that common opponent over. There's not even a discussion about that at all. No one brings it up that Miami dominated their common opponent in Florida State while Alabama got dominated by Florida State. Now, look, I don't think it's reasonable. I think it's reasonable, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it should happen that Miami's ranked over Alabama, but there should be at least a conversation. And there should absolutely be no conversation about whether Miami should be ranked over Notre Dame, whether they're in the same bubble bracket, capsule, three-team, threesome. It doesn't matter. I don't know what they're talking about. That should not even be a conversation. And it's ESPN and their little stupid CFB committee show, and they push all these narratives on there and blah, 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 what Miami has to do, what Miami has to do. It's something new every time. They need to lose to better teams. They need to beat better teams. They need to beat these teams by more. The only reason style points should be factored in is when a team didn't play the other team. The only reason common opponents should be factored in is when a team didn't play another team. The only reason common opponents and the scores they put against them should be factored in is when a team doesn't play another team. Well, Miami played Notre Dame. They played a top 10 team, and they beat them. And there's top 10 teams with 2 losses sitting there. And Miami's not a top 10 team with 2 losses, despite them beating a top 10 team. It makes no sense. The ACC gets no credit by ESPN and all these national media narratives being pushed for beating up on each other. I believe the ACC is a good conference. All right? I don't think the Big 12 is that much better. The SEC is better, yes, but I don't think it's as much better as they push because all these SEC teams get preseason rankings. Every single one of them get preseason rankings, so the narrative is already factored in before the season starts. So when they start beating up on each other, it's oh my god, the SEC is beating up on each other. This team lost to this team. No, that's not that bad of a loss because it's the SEC team. It's been the same shit for the last 5 years, and it's stupid. And now that ESPN has the SEC, it's even worse. It's even worse. I'm done. The Canes' chances at making the playoffs have disintegrated greatly. Not only because of this narrative, you can't blame it completely on the narrative. You can blame it on themselves for losing to SMU in a dumb game because of the coaching. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But we're still in a position to try and make the playoffs, but it has disintegrated because Utah won, unfortunately, somehow pulled away in that game. And BYU, on the other hand, they're a one-loss team, so I can't complain about them that much. It's not going to be talked about. It's going to be talked about how they got a tough win over Cincinnati on the road. It's not going to be talked about how they were handed that game, basically, because Cincinnati wants to get stopped at the 3-yard line. Their kicker missed 3 field goals, and they had dumb turnover, a ghost fumble. It's not going to be talked about that stuff happened with Cincinnati. It's not going to be talked about. It's not going to be talked about that, and they only won by 1 score. So you factor all that stuff in, there's no way Cincinnati could have not gotten 1 more score out of all that because they got stopped at 3-yard line, and they missed 3 field goals and they fumbled the ball to the turf monster. That's not going to be factored in either. But Miami's 17-point victory is not enough, and that's what's going to be factored into ESPN's narrative pushing on Monday, Tuesday, and the CFP's committee little stupid ass explaining on Tuesday night. That's what we're going to get. And that's all very, very unfortunate. And I think Miami's playoff chances are now better to get into the ACC championship than it is to get an at-large bid at this point because no one's losing. We're not getting any favorable talk, any favorable chatter anymore. And Notre Dame just beat Syracuse by 70, despite them. I have a theory that Fran Brown probably took that one for Notre Dame. I wouldn't doubt it, but I'm just joking. And Vanderbilt smoked Kentucky, so they'll probably jump us. So the only way Miami gets in at this point, in my opinion, is through an ACC championship, which they will need SMU. I believe, yeah, SMU to lose to Cal, Virginia to win, Duke to lose, or some 300 different combinations we'll go over later. Other than that, unfortunately, Miami gets no favorable talk, and Miami's not favored by ESPN despite being one of the best ratings team in the ACC. I don't see why they do this. I don't know why they do this, and it's stupid and it's annoying, and it's just a whole rant. Other than that, I'll always be a Hurricanes fan. Let's go Canes.